Hello everybody. In this screencast we're going to look at how we can add and remove and replace a fragment dynamically, also in code. So in our previous example we just added the fragment when the app starts. Alright, so let's go change the layout a little bit. What I want to do is I want to drop a button. Let's put the button at the bottom of the screen. Let's give this guy a little bit of a padding so that we can work here. Let's give it more. Let's say make this for the time being 100 so that we could just work on the button. I bring in the button, so this is the first button. Button 1, button 2, alright, and then button 3. Here it is. Alright, so button 2, but this button 2, I want it to be the bottom here. And then this one is here, and then this one is somewhere here. And then basically they all are connected to one another. Let's see. Alright, so let's just look at one. Okay. To the bottom. To the bottom. Here it is. Is there any padding? No padding. Let's remove this constraint, make it to the center of the screen. Okay, so it's to the center of the screen, and then this guy is here, and then we make this guy point here. Okay, perfect. So we have these buttons, 1, 2, 3, right? Here are some buttons. And basically what I want to do is, let's say we remove this one, also put it to point to the top of this button, put us a little bit of a margin of 16. So you have, this is the container view, and I have these buttons, right? And basically what I want to do is when the user clicks on the different buttons, so one of them is going to show the fragment, let's say fragment A, or fragment 1. What did we call it? We call it fragment A or fragment 1. First fragment, okay. Call it fragment, let's say fragment 1, right? Or call it first fragment, show first fragment, right? So that's the first one. And then this one is going to show the second fragment, so the second. Alright, so that's this one. And then this one is going to show the third fragment, so the third fragment. So basically what I want to do is when I click on any of these buttons, so this one is the first, I'll call it first, and this one is going to be the second, right, and this one is going to be the third. All right, so basically it allows me to, whenever I click on one of these buttons, I want to change the fragment that displays here. Okay. So now let's go back to our fragments. So this is, let's look at the code for the fragments simplified, because we don't need all of this code, because we just want to demo something here, which is related to changing fragments on the screen. Okay, so that's the fragment, right? I don't need all these methods, by the way. We have them just because we were demonstrating the life cycle. We don't need all of this, and also we don't need all of it, but we need the onCreate view and onCreate. All right, perfect. So we have the fragments. Now we have the first fragment, so let's go to the first fragment, simplify it a little bit, and we call it, for example, this is the first fragment. Let's call it first fragment. Okay, here it is, and I'll remove the button. I don't need the button anymore. And if we run it, it's still going to run. You know, it's going to show, hello, welcome to the first fragment. This is the first fragment. Perfect. Okay, so now let's create two other fragments. I'll go here, I'll create fragment. Blank fragment, here it is, and I click on finish. That's this one, but it's called blank fragment. I don't want to call it blank fragment. Let me rename it. So I'll go refactor rename. I'll call it second fragment. This is going to be my second fragment. Okay, here it is, and I'm going to remove all of this code that they have here, right? So the code that has to do with a new instance, I'll keep the constructor. I'll remove this, and I'll keep the onCreate and the onCreate view. And you can see that it says fragment blank. I'll just rename this file and call it, for example, fragment refactor rename, I'll call it second because the layout name. Right, so now I have these, the first fragment, the second fragment, and let's create the third fragment. Okay, we're going to new fragment, and I'm gonna use the blank fragment, and that's gonna be the third. All right, third fragment, and here it is, finish. And similarly, I'm going to remove all of this stuff and all of this. We'll talk about the, how to use these methods in a little bit, right? And I'm going to use this one and so on. So basically I have the third fragment. Let me go to the layouts and I'll copy the layout of the first fragment. So if you go here, this is the layout for the first fragment. I'll just copy it, Control C. I'll go back to the second fragment. I'll go to its code and I'm going to paste it. Right, and here its context, I'll say second fragment. That's the second fragment, and welcome to the second fragment. Second fragments, here we go, and maybe I'll change the color to make it maybe green. Here it is. So the second fragment is going to be green, and then I'll go to the layout of the third fragment, also code, and Control V, and this one is the third. Basically, this context is something that Android Studio uses. It has nothing to do with Android, to tell it that this layout is related to the third fragment. So you can type anything here. It's not going to cause any errors, but okay. This is the third fragment, and basically I want to change this to make it maybe, let's make it orange. Okay, so basically we have red, orange. Let's make it something else, maybe blue. Here's blue. Okay, so you have blue. So if we go back to the code, go to the design, this is the third fragment, and this is the activity. This is the second fragment. Let's go back to the design. The second fragment is green and the first fragment is the red one, right? Okay, so basically the code right now that we have, when we run it, it still should run. It will just shows up the first fragment. That's it. So basically it just shows up this first fragment, right? So let's go at the main activity and look at the code that we have. So this is the main activity, right? It's here. Let's set up the listeners. So you say find view by ID r.id dot, then button show first fragment, right? Dot set on content, set on click listener, new on click listener. And basically what we are going to do is very similar to what is happening here. Basically we will get, when you click it, we'll say get support fragment manager dot begin transaction, and then basically what I want to do is replace. I'll just say dot replace what? Replace whatever is being displayed in this content view with this fragment. And basically that's what I'm going to do. So basically you give it the ID of the content view, r.id.container view, and basically I'll say new first fragment. All right, and then basically I'll just do commit. All right, so basically that's what I'm going to do. This is the first, when you click the first button, right? Basically you'll show the first fragment, and I'll just copy this code to do the same thing for the first, the second, right? So the second, and you also have the third, right? All right, so that's the first, second, and third, right? And then basically here you'll say new second fragment, and this is the third fragment. So basically when you click on any of these buttons, what we're doing is we're using the fragment manager, begin transaction. We are going to replace whatever is in the container view with the first fragment, or we're going to replace it with the second fragment, and we're going to replace it with the third fragment. What replace that is that it removes and adds. So replace removes whatever is there and then adds whatever you want to add. So let's run this and see. Okay, so basically it loads the first fragment because of this case, right? Because at the beginning we initialize it with the first fragment, and then when you click on first, it's still first, so there is nothing to do here. When you click on second, it loads the second fragment. So actually it removed the one before that, by the way. And then when you click on the third, it removes the third, second, first, second, and third. So now to prove to you that replace is similar to remove and add, so basically what you could do is you could come here, like say remove, okay, and basically we need a fragment. So basically we need to remove a fragment. So to be able to remove a fragment, I have to retrieve that fragment. Okay, so fragment, okay, I'll say fragment. I have to get that fragment from the screen. How to do that? Get support fragment manager dot get support fragment manager dot find fragment by tag or by ID. So I need to give it a tag or an ID to be able to retrieve it, right? And I haven't given any of them IDs or tags, right? So that's one approach. So you need to get that fragment. Okay, there is get primary navigation fragment. That's another thing. But anyhow, we need to get that fragment from the screen. So now I need to be able to give it IDs. So to be able to give it IDs, what I could do is the tags. I could say this is, for example, first, right? Or I can give it any fragment. I could say fragment, right? I can give them all the same tag, so I can remove them, right? That's how you do this. And then the replace also has another one, and then the replace also here has another one, right? So there is a tag that you can add. So now I can get the fragment. So what I could do, I could say fragment equals get support fragment manager dot get fragment by tag, or get fragment, or okay, fragment manager, get support fragment manager, and then I want to get dot fragment, okay, find fragment by tag, and I just pass on the tag, which is fragment, right? Here's my tag. You can name it anything you want. So that's the fragment. Now I could check to see if fragment, I need to make sure that it's not null, right? If fragment is not equal to null, right, I'll go ahead and do this. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take this code, put it here, and then I'm going to say remove fragment that I received, and then you say add the fragment that I want to add. So I'm going to add very similar to this. Here we go. So basically that's one approach of doing this, is instead of just doing replace, you can do remove and then add. Let's try. So we run it. Okay, so we have this red fragment here. Let's add the third fragment. Here it is. It replaced, right? Now when I click on first again, what's going to happen is that it will go in, it will retrieve the fragment, and if it's not null, it's going to replace it with the first one. Okay, so now let's click the first, and you can see it did replace it. What does the replace do? It will remove and then add. So to be able to remove, you need to get the instance of the fragment. So you can get the instance of the fragment if you have it, if you associated a tag with it, or you give it an ID. All right, so please let me know if you have any questions.